The rain hammered against the glass walls of Apex Tech Corporation as Elena Roswell clutched her leather portfolio against her chest. At 24, she had spent most of her professional life working from her small apartment, coding in solitude where her social anxiety couldn't betray her. Today marked her first day as a senior developer at one of the city's most prestigious tech companies, and her hands wouldn't stop shaking. The lobby buzzed with activity as executives in sharp suits moved with purpose through the marble halls. Elena pressed herself against a pillar, watching the controlled chaos while trying to gather courage. The job posting had seemed too good to be true when she applied. Excellent salary, cutting-edge projects. And they had hired her based purely on her coding portfolio without even requiring an in-person interview. Elena Roswell. A warm voice interrupted her observations. A woman with auburn hair and kind eyes approached, extending a manicured hand. "I'm Victoria Chen from Human Resources. Welcome to Apex Tech." Lena managed a soft thank you as they shook hands, her voice barely audible over the lobby's ambient noise. Victoria's smile remained genuine despite Elena's obvious nervousness. "Me show you to your workstation," Victoria said, leading her toward the elevators. "The development team is excited to have you. Your reputation precedes you, especially after that security protocol you designed for the government contracts." As they rose to the 15th floor, Victoria explained the company's structure. Apex Tech specializes in advanced systems integration. We work with everything from basic corporate networks to highly classified government projects. Your expertise in quantum encryption will be invaluable here. The development floor was an open concept space with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a stunning view of the city skyline. Workstations were arranged in clusters, each equipped with multiple monitors and high-end hardware. Elena noticed the casual dress code among the programmers, a relief since she had worried about fitting into a stuffy corporate environment. "This is your space," Victoria said, indicating a corner workstation with 3 large monitors and a view of the city. "The team lead, James Parker, will be with you shortly to discuss your first project assignment." Elena settled into her ergonomic chair, powering up the systems while trying to calm her racing heart. The setup was impressive, far beyond what she had worked with as a freelancer. As she logged into the company network, she marveled at the processing speed and security protocols. "You must be our new quantum specialist," a friendly voice said. Behind her, Lena turned to see a tall man with glasses and a welcoming smile. "I'm James Parker, development team lead. Ready to dive into something extraordinary?" Lena nodded, finding her voice slightly stronger in the familiar territory of technical discussion. "What kind of project are we working on?" James pulled up a chair, his excitement evident. "We're developing a new type of security system that can adapt and evolve in real time. Think artificial intelligence meets quantum encryption? The applications are limitless, from protecting financial institutions to securing military communications." As James explained the technical specifications, Elena felt her nervousness fade. This was her element, where complex algorithms and elegant code solutions made perfect sense. She began asking detailed questions about the system architecture and data flow, her voice growing more confident with each technical exchange. "Impressive questions," James noted. "You're already thinking 3 steps ahead. The project timeline is aggressive, but with your background, I think we can exceed expectations." Their technical discussion was interrupted by a shift in the office atmosphere. Lena noticed conversations quieting and several employees straightening in their chairs. She followed their gaze toward the elevator, where a man had just emerged. Damien Blackwood commanded attention without trying. At 32, he stood well over 6 feet tall, with broad shoulders that filled his charcoal gray suit perfectly. His dark hair was styled with precision, but it was his eyes that made Elena's breath catch. They were an unusual amber color, almost golden in the office lighting, and seemed to take in everything with predatory awareness. "The CEO," James whispered unnecessarily. "Damien Blackwood. He built this company from nothing in just 7 years. Brilliant mind, but he can be quite intense." Elena watched as Damien moved through the office, stopping to speak with various employees. His presence seemed to electrify the space. She noticed how people responded to him with a mixture of respect and something that looked almost like fear. When he smiled, which he did frequently during his conversations, There was something sharp about it that made Elena think of dangerous things. "Parker," Damien called out, his voice carrying easily across the office, even from a distance. The deep timbre made Elena shiver involuntarily. "I'd like a status update on the new security project." James stood immediately. "Of course, sir." "Let me introduce you to our new team member." Elena's stomach dropped as she realized she was about to meet the most intimidating person she had ever seen. She stood on unsteady legs, her portfolio clutched protectively against her chest again. "This is Elena Roswell, our new quantum encryption specialist," James said as they approached. "Elena, meet Damien Blackwood, our CEO." Damien's golden eyes fixed on Elena with an intensity that made her feel exposed, as if he could see straight through to her soul. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Elena felt heat rise in her cheeks under his scrutiny, and she dropped her gaze to her shoes. "Elena Roswell," Damien said slowly, as if tasting her name. His voice was even more commanding up close, with an undertone that seemed to resonate in her chest. "The freelancer who cracked the Pentagon's new security protocol in 3 days," Elena managed to look up, surprised he knew about her work. "It was actually 4 days," she whispered, then immediately regretted correcting him. To her amazement, Damien smiled. Not the sharp expression she had observed from across the office, but something genuine and warm that transformed his entire face. "For days," he repeated. "Even more impressive. Most experts estimated it would take months if it could be done at all. The mathematics were actually quite elegant once I understood the underlying pattern." Elena found herself saying, her voice still soft, but growing slightly stronger as she discussed her work. The developers had created beautiful complexity, but they left a small recursive loop that could be exploited if you approached it from the right angle. Damien's eyes never left her face as she spoke, and Elena noticed something shift in his expression. The intimidating executive was replaced by someone genuinely intrigued by what she was saying. "Show me," he said simply. Elena blinked. "I'm sorry, it's a recursive loop." "Show me how you found it," Damien gestured toward her workstation. "I'd like to understand your approach." James looked surprised, but pleased as Elena led them to her computer. Her hands were steadier now as she pulled up a simplified version of the Pentagon security system she had worked on months earlier. "The system appears impenetrable because it uses quantum entanglement to create keys that change constantly," Elena explained, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she recreated her work. "But here in the verification protocol, there's a small delay between key generation and implementation." As she worked, Elena became completely absorbed in the elegant dance of code and mathematics. She forgot about Damien's intimidating presence, forgot about her nervousness, forgot everything except the beautiful problem before her. "During that delay, the system has to store the new key temporarily," she continued, highlighting sections of code on her screen. "Most people focused on breaking the quantum encryption itself, but I realized you could exploit the storage process instead." She pulled up another window showing her solution. "By creating a false verification request at precisely the right moment, you can force the system to reveal the temporary key structure. It only works for about 12 milliseconds, but that's enough." The office around them had grown quiet as other developers gathered to watch Elena's demonstration. When she finished, there was a moment of awed silence. "Brilliant," Damien said softly, and something in his tone made Elena look up at him again. His golden eyes held an expression she couldn't identify, something warmer than professional admiration, but more intense than casual interest. "How long would it take you to develop a similar system for our new project?" Damien asked. "One that couldn't be exploited the same way." Elena considered the question carefully. 6 weeks for the core architecture, another month for testing and refinement. But I'd want to build in multiple layers of verification. Maybe use a quantum cascade instead of simple entanglement." "A quantum cascade," Damien repeated thoughtfully. "Interesting approach. That would create an exponentially more complex verification matrix." Elena nodded enthusiastically, surprised that he understood the implications immediately. "Exactly. Even if someone found one exploit, they'd need to solve 17 different quantum puzzles simultaneously to break through." For several minutes, they discussed technical possibilities while the gathered crowd listened in fascination. Elena found herself debating complex theoretical concepts with the CEO as if they were old colleagues, her nervousness completely forgotten. In the excitement of intellectual exchange, I think Damien said finally that we need to fast-track this project. Elena, I'm placing you as lead developer on the quantum security initiative, effective immediately. James looked surprised, but quickly nodded his agreement. That's a significant responsibility for someone's first day. I have complete confidence in her abilities, Damien said, his eyes still fixed on Elena. Sometimes you recognize exceptional talent immediately. Elena felt her cheeks warm under his praise. I won't let you down, she managed to say. I know. You won't, Damien replied. Then, after a pause that seemed to stretch longer than appropriate, he added, I'd like to schedule a private meeting tomorrow morning to discuss project parameters. My office, 9 o'clock. As Damien walked away, Elena noticed that several female employees watched his departure with obvious appreciation. She couldn't blame them. There was something magnetic about Damien Blackwood that went beyond his obvious success and authority, James said with a grin. I've never seen the CEO spend 30 minutes discussing quantum theory with anyone. You must have made quite an impression. Elena sank into her chair, suddenly aware of how fast her heart was beating. She had just been promoted on her first day and earned the personal attention of the most powerful man in the company. I felt like triumph, but instead, she felt off balance. Yes. As if the ground beneath her feet had shifted in some fundamental way. For the rest of the day, Elena threw herself into learning the company's existing security protocols and planning. Her approach to the quantum project, but she couldn't shake the memory of Damien's golden eyes or the way his voice seemed to resonate through her bones when he spoke. As evening approached, and the office began to empty, Elena realized she was both dreading and anticipating tomorrow morning's meeting. Something about Damien Blackwood called to her in a way she didn't understand. A pull that felt dangerous and thrilling in equal measure. She had always been careful, cautious, content to hide behind her computer screen and avoid the complications of human interaction. But Damien had seen something in her that no one else ever had, and that recognition had awakened something she hadn't known she possessed. Walking to the elevator that evening, Elena caught her reflection in the polished doors. For the first time in years, she saw not just the shy programmer who preferred shadows, but a woman with possibilities stretching before her like uncharted code waiting to be written. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. And somehow, Elena knew that her carefully ordered world was about to become much more complicated. But as the elevator carried her down toward the rain-soaked street, I found herself looking forward to the chaos. Elena arrived at Apex Tech 30 minutes early the next morning, using the extra time to review her project proposals and calm her nerves. The executive floor was quieter than the development level, with thick carpeting that muffled footsteps and artwork that probably cost more than Elena's annual salary. Damien's office occupied a corner of the building with floor-to-ceiling windows on 2 walls. When Elena knocked on the frosted glass door at exactly 9 o'clock, his deep voice called for her to enter. The office was a study in controlled power. A massive desk dominated the space, flanked by leather chairs and a seating area with a modern sofa. But what captured Elena's attention were the personal touches that revealed glimpses of the man behind the executive facade. Ancient-looking books lined one wall, their leather bindings suggesting age and value. A collection of unusual stones and crystals sat on a side table, each piece unique and somehow compelling. Please sit wherever you're comfortable, Damien said, gesturing toward the seating area rather than the formal chairs across from his desk. He had removed his suit jacket. Elena noticed how his white shirt emphasized the breadth of his shoulders. Elena chose the edge of the sofa, setting her laptop bag beside her with careful precision. Damien settled into the chair across from her, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his unusual eyes. I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday, he began, his voice carrying that same resonant quality that seemed to reach inside her chest. Your approach to the Pentagon system was unconventional, but that's exactly what we need for this project. Elena nodded, finding her voice stronger in the familiar territory of work discussion. I've drafted some preliminary specifications. The quantum cascade concept could be revolutionary if we can solve the processing power requirements. As she opened her laptop and began explaining her ideas, Elena felt the same shift that had occurred yesterday. Her nervousness faded as they dove into technical details, replaced by the excitement of collaborative problem-solving. Damien listened intently, asking questions that revealed a deep understanding of both the theoretical concepts and practical applications. His intelligence was formidable, but what surprised Elena was how he encouraged her ideas, building on her suggestions rather than challenging them. The processing requirements are significant, Elena admitted, pulling up complex calculations. On her screen, we'd need quantum processors running in parallel. It's probably a minimum of 12 cores to handle the cascade calculations in real time. Cost isn't a concern, Damien said without hesitation. If we can create what you're describing, it would be worth any investment. Elena looked up from her screen, studying his face. You really believe this could work? I believe in your vision. Damien replied, and something in his tone made Elena's breath catch. You see possibilities that others miss? It's a rare gift. Their eyes met and held for a moment longer than professional conversation warranted. Elena felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she didn't look away. There was something in Damien's golden gaze that made her feel seen in a way she had never experienced before. There's something else I want to discuss, Damien said, his voice dropping slightly. This project will require long hours and close collaboration. I'd like to suggest we work together directly rather than going through standard corporate channels. Hart skipped. What do you mean? Private meetings, dedicated workspace, direct communication? Damien leaned forward slightly. I want to be personally involved in every aspect of development. Would you be comfortable with that level of partnership? The word partnership seemed to carry weight beyond its professional meaning. Elena found herself nodding before she fully processed what she was agreeing to. Excellent, Damien said, his smile warm and somehow predatory at the same time. I'll have a private lab set up on the executive floor. We can work without interruptions there. As their meeting concluded, Elena gathered her materials with hands that trembled slightly. The intensity of Damien's attention was overwhelming, like standing too close to a fire that could either warm or burn. Elena, Damien said as she reached the door. She turned back to find him standing much closer than she had expected. But you two know that you can trust me completely. Whatever happens between us, I will never let any harm come to you. The strange phrasing puzzled Elena, but before she could ask what he meant, Damien had stepped back with a professional smile, and the moment passed. Over the following weeks, Elena found herself spending more time on the executive floor than at her original workstation. The private lab Damien had arranged was a programmer's dream, equipped with cutting-edge quantum processors and security systems that rivaled government installations. Working closely with Damien revealed new facets of his personality that both fascinated and confused Elena. He was brilliant, capable of understanding complex theoretical concepts with minimal explanation. But there were moments when he seemed to know things he shouldn't, making intuitive leaps that defied rational explanation. How did you know the cascade would create thermal buildup in the third processor? Elena asked one afternoon, staring at her screen in amazement. Damien had suggested a modification that solved a problem she hadn't even identified yet. Damien paused in his review of system specifications, and Elena caught something like caution flickering across his features. Experience with similar systems, he said carefully. Pattern recognition? But Elena was beginning to notice other patterns. The way Damien's eyes sometimes seemed to glow with inner light when he was deep in thought. How the temperature in the room rose when he became excited about a breakthrough. The way he moved with predatory grace that suggested strength far beyond what his business suits revealed. Most puzzling were the moments when he seemed to forget himself entirely. Like the afternoon when Elena had accidentally knocked over her coffee mug and Damien had moved across the room with impossible speed to catch it before it hit the floor. Quick reflexes, he had said with a sheepish smile, but Elena had seen something else in his eyes, something wild and barely contained. Their working relationship evolved into something deeper as they spent long hours together in the private lab. Conversations began to include personal details alongside technical discussions. Elena learned that Damien had built his company to prove something to himself. That success was a way of controlling circumstances that had once controlled him. I've always been different, he told her one evening, as they debugged code while rain lashed against the windows. In school, in business, in every relationship I've ever attempted, people sense something in me that they can't identify, and it either attracts or repels them. Elena looked up from her screen, studying his profile. In the blue glow of monitors, what kind of something? Damien was quiet for so long that Elena thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Power, danger, things that most people instinctively fear. I'm not afraid of you, Elena said impulsively, then felt her cheeks warm at the admission. Damien turned to face her fully, his golden eyes intense in the dim lighting. You should be, he said softly. Elena blinked, certain she had misheard. What? But Damien had already turned back to his work, and when Elena pressed for clarification, he deflected with technical questions about the Quantum Cascade project. As the weeks passed, Elena found herself looking forward to their time together with an anticipation that went far beyond professional interest. Damien was fascinating, brilliant, and attractive in a way that made her forget her usual social anxiety. When he focused his attention on her, she felt like the most important person in the world. But she also began to notice things that didn't quite add up. Phone calls that Damien took in languages she couldn't identify. Meetings with clients who never seemed to arrive through normal building security. The way Damien's office temperature fluctuated without any apparent connection to the building's climate control. One late evening, as they worked alone in the private lab, Elena decided to address her growing curiosity directly. Damien, she said, saving her work and turning to face him. Can I ask you something personal? He looked up from the quantum processor diagnostics, wariness flickering across his features. Of course. What did you mean when you said you weren't entirely human? Damien's hands stilled on the keyboard. For a long moment, the only sound was the quiet hum of computer fans and the distant city traffic far below. Some conversations change. Everything, he said finally, his voice carefully controlled. Once certain words are spoken, there's no going back to the way things were. Elena felt her heart accelerate, but she pressed forward. Maybe I don't want things to stay the way they were. Damien studied her face with an intensity that made her feel exposed and cherished simultaneously. You're certain you want to know? Elena nodded, not trusting her voice. Damien stood slowly, moving to the center of the lab, where the lighting was brightest. What I'm about to show you will seem impossible. I need you to remember that I would never hurt you, no matter what you... See? Before Elena could ask what he meant, the air around Damien began to shimmer, like heat waves rising from summer pavement. His form blurred, expanded, and transformed in ways that defied every law of physics Elena understood. Where Damien had stood moments before, a magnificent dragon now filled the lab space. Scales the color of burnished gold covered a form that was both terrifying and beautiful. Golden eyes, familiar despite their changed context, watched Elena with anxious intelligence. Elena's rational mind tried to reject what she was seeing, but the evidence was undeniable. The dragon was real, and somehow, impossibly, it was also Damien. This is what I am, Damien's voice said, though it now carried harmonics that resonated through Elena's bones. This is why I said I wasn't entirely human. Elena sat frozen, her scientific training warring with the impossibility before her. Dragons were mythology, fantasy, creatures that existed only in stories and dreams. Yet here was living proof that everything she thought she knew about the world was wrong. You're afraid, Damien observed, and Elena heard sadness in his transformed voice. No, Elena whispered, then cleared her throat and spoke more firmly. Not afraid, overwhelmed. This changes everything I thought I understood about reality. Dragon form shimmered again, and Damien returned to his human appearance, though his golden eyes remained more vivid than before. Now you know why I said some conversations change everything, Damien said quietly. I've never shown anyone my true form. The risk was always too great. Elena stood on unsteady legs, her mind racing through implications and questions. How is this possible? How long have you been able to transform? Are there others? Damien smiled sadly. So many questions. Yes, there are others, though we are rare, and we've learned to hide in plain sight. I've been able to shift between forms since adolescence. And as for how it's possible, he shrugged. Magic exists alongside science, Elena. The two aren't mutually exclusive. Elena walked closer to him, studying his face for any sign of deception. But this was still Damien, still the brilliant man who had seen potential in her that no one else had recognized. Why did you tell me? She asked. Damien's expression grew vulnerable. Because I'm falling in love with you, and I couldn't bear the thought of you loving only half of who I am. The confession hit Elena like a physical force. She had been so focused on the revelation of his dragon nature that she hadn't fully processed what it meant that he had chosen to trust her with. His deepest secret. Damien? She whispered, reaching up to touch his face. His skin was warmer than normal, and she could feel power humming beneath the surface. I understand if this is too much, he said, covering her hand with his. I understand if you need time to process, or if you decide this is too complicated to pursue. Elena studied his golden eyes, seeing the fear he was trying to hide. This powerful, successful man who could literally transform into a dragon was terrified that she would reject him. Ask me tomorrow, she said softly. Give me tonight to think about everything you've shown me. But Damien? She stepped closer. Close enough to feel the heat radiating from his skin. Don't assume the answer will be no. Hope flickered in his eyes as Elena gathered her things and headed for the door. She paused at the threshold, looking back at the man who had just revealed himself to be something from legends and dreams. Thank you for trusting me, she said. It means more than you know. As the elevator carried her down to the parking garage, Elena's mind whirled with questions and possibilities. Her orderly world had been completely overturned, but instead of fear, she felt excitement building in her chest. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and decisions that would shape the rest of her life. But for the first time since meeting Damien Blackwood, Elena felt like she finally understood the pull she had felt from the beginning. He wasn't just a brilliant CEO with unusual eyes. He was something magical, powerful, and impossible. Somehow, incredibly, he was falling in love with her. Elena spent the night walking through her apartment, unable to sit still as her mind processed everything Damien had revealed. She researched dragon mythology until her eyes burned, looking for clues about what his true nature might mean for any potential relationship between them. By morning, she had reached a startling conclusion. The impossibility of what she had witnessed was exactly what made it believable. Damien had no reason to create such an elaborate deception. The vulnerability in his eyes when he had revealed his dragon form had been genuine. And Elena realized that her response would determine not just their future together, but how much of himself he would ever dare to share with another person. She arrived at Apex Tech early, before even the security guards had settled into their morning routines. Using her new executive access card, Lena made her way to the private lab, where she and Damien had spent so many hours working together. The space felt different now, charged with the memory of transformation and revelation. Elena positioned herself at the center of the room where Damien had shifted, trying to imagine the magnificent dragon that had filled this space just hours before. You're here early. Damien's voice from the doorway made Elena turn. He looked tired, as if he had slept as little as she had, and there was uncertainty in his posture that she had never seen before. I needed to see the space again, Elena said, to make sure I hadn't imagined everything. Damien stepped into the lab, closing the door behind him, and Elena smiled, feeling more confident than she had since their first meeting. You're definitely a dragon. The scorch marks on the ceiling. Tiles are a dead giveaway. Damien looked up, noticing for the first time the subtle burn patterns his transformation had left behind. I'll have maintenance replace those. Don't you dare, Elena said firmly. Those marks prove that magic is real, that the impossible exists. In our everyday world. I want to remember that. Hope flickered in Damien's golden eyes. Does that mean you've made your decision? Instead of answering immediately, Elena walked closer to him. I have questions first, important ones. Damien nodded, settling into one of the lab chairs. Ask anything. Elena perched on the edge of a desk, gathering her thoughts. How dangerous is your dragon form? Not to me specifically, but in general. Very, Damien answered honestly. Dragons are apex predators. We're built for power, for dominance, for protecting what we consider ours. In dragon form, my strength increases exponentially and my instincts become more primal. Have you ever hurt anyone? Damien was quiet for a long moment. Yes, in self-defense, and only when absolutely necessary. But yes, Elena appreciated his honesty. What about control? When you transform, are you still you? Mostly. The dragon shares my consciousness, but it has its own impulses and priorities. Think of it as two aspects of the same person, rather than two separate beings. And what does the dragon aspect want? Elena asked, though she sensed the answer would be complicated. Damien's eyes grew more intense. To protect you. To claim you as mine. To eliminate any threat to your safety or happiness. He paused. Dragon instincts regarding mates are quite possessive. Elena felt heat rise in her cheeks. Mates. Dragons bond for life when we find our perfect match, Damien explained carefully. It's not something we choose consciously. The recognition is instinctual, immediate, and permanent. Elena's heart accelerated. Are you saying you think I'm your mate? Damien stood slowly, moving closer to her. I knew the moment I saw you in the development office. The dragon recognized you before I consciously understood what was happening. That's why you promoted me so quickly, Elena realized. Why you wanted to work together directly. Partly, Damien admitted, but also because you're genuinely brilliant. The dragon may have recognized you first, but my human side fell in love with your mind, your passion for your work, your quiet strength. Elena slid off the desk, standing close enough to feel the heat radiating from Damien's skin. What would a relationship between us actually look like? I mean, practically speaking. Damien reached up to cup her face gently. It would mean sharing my world completely, meeting other supernatural beings, learning about dragon culture and history, accepting protection that might sometimes feel overwhelming. Protection from what? Dragons have enemies, Damien said seriously. Others who would use knowledge of our existence for their own purposes. There are also supernatural politics that can become dangerous. If you're with me, you become part of that world whether you want to or not. Elena considered this, understanding that Damien was offering her a choice that would fundamentally change her life. No more quiet anonymity, no more hiding behind computer screens. Being with him would mean stepping into a larger, more dangerous, but infinitely more interesting world. There's something else, Damien continued. Dragon bonds are magical in nature. If we complete the mating bond, you would gain certain abilities, extended lifespan, enhanced physical capabilities. Elena blinked. I would become supernatural. 2, not entirely, but you would be changed. The bond shares some of the dragon's power with the mate. Damien searched her face anxiously. I know it's a lot to consider. Elena reached up to cover his hands with hers. Damien, I've spent my entire life playing it safe, hiding from anything that might challenge or change me. Meeting you was the first time I ever took a real risk, and it's been the most rewarding experience of my life. Elena, Damien whispered, hope and longing clear in his voice. I'm not saying yes to everything immediately, Elena continued. This is too important to rush. But I'm saying yes to exploring what's between us, to learning about your world, to seeing where this connection leads. Damien's smile was radiant. It's more than I dared hope for. Elena stood on her toes, bringing her face closer to his. There is one thing I need right now, though. Anything. I need you to kiss me. I've been wondering what it would feel like since the day we met. Damien's response was immediate and overwhelming. His lips captured hers with a passion that spoke of weeks of restraint finally released. Elena melted against him, her hands fisting in his shirt as she discovered that kissing Damien was like touching lightning. Electric and dangerous, and absolutely addictive. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Elena could see gold flickering in Damien's eyes, the dragon responding to their physical connection. The Quantum Cascade Project, Elena said breathlessly. Damien looked confused by the apparent change of subject. What about it? We should finish it, Elena said with a smile. But I think our working relationship just became much more interesting. Over the following months, Elena's world expanded in ways she never could have imagined. Damien introduced her gradually to the supernatural community that existed alongside the human world. She met other shapeshifters, learned about magical politics, discovered that reality was far more complex and wonderful than she had ever suspected. The quantum cascade security system they developed together became the foundation for a new division of Apex Tech, one that secretly served supernatural clients who needed advanced protection for their own hidden communities. Elena's relationship with Damien deepened as she came to understand both aspects of his nature. The human side was brilliant, driven, and surprisingly gentle. The dragon was protective, passionate, and absolutely devoted to her well-being. One evening, as they worked late in their private lab, Damien made an observation that surprised Elena. "You've changed," he said, looking up from the code they were debugging together. Elena glanced at him curiously. "How so?" "The shy programmer who could barely speak above a whisper on her first day is gone," Damien noted with pride. "You address supernatural clients with confidence. You argue with me about technical specifications. You've even started making suggestions in board meetings." Elena considered this, realizing he was right. "I guess knowing that dragons exist puts most other challenges in perspective. If I can handle dating a shapeshifter, I can probably handle a presentation to the board of directors." Damien laughed, the sound rich and warm. "Is that what we're doing?" Dating Elena saved her work and turned to face him fully. They had been exploring their relationship for months, but had never formally defined it. "What would you call it?" Damien's expression grew serious. "I'd call it falling deeper in love every day. I'd call it preparing for a life together if you're ready for that step." Elena felt her heart race with excitement rather than nervousness. "Are you asking me something specific?" Stood, pulling something from his pocket. It wasn't a traditional ring box, but a small wooden case carved with intricate designs that seemed to shift and move in the laboratory lighting. "Elena Roswell," Damien said, opening the case to reveal a ring unlike anything she had ever seen. The band appeared to be made of some kind of metal that held inner fire, and the stone was a deep amber that perfectly matched his eyes. "Will you marry me? Will you accept the dragon bond and become my mate for life?" Elena stared at the ring, understanding that accepting it meant accepting everything. A life filled with magic and wonder, but also danger and responsibility. A love that would be deeper and more permanent than anything most people ever experienced. She said without hesitation, yes to all of it. As Damien slipped the ring onto her finger, Elena felt a surge of warmth that had nothing to do with the laboratory's climate control. The amber stone seemed to pulse with inner light, and she could swear she felt something fundamental shift. Inside her chest, "Edo bond is beginning," Damien explained softly, his own eyes glowing with golden light. "It will complete gradually over the next few weeks as your body adapts to the magical connection." Elena flexed her fingers, marveling at how the ring seemed to fit perfectly, despite Damien having no way to know her size. "How does it feel? The bond, I mean." Damien pulled her into his arms, his voice warm with emotion, like coming home. "Like finding the missing piece of myself I never knew I was looking for." Elena stood on her toes to kiss him again, tasting the promise of their shared future. When they separated, she noticed that her reflection in the laboratory's polished surfaces looked different somehow. Her eyes seemed brighter, her posture more confident. "No more trembling when the CEO speaks to me," she said with a laugh. "Good," Damien replied, his smile predatory and loving in equal measure. "Because this CEO has a lot more he wants to say to his future wife." As they stood together in the laboratory where their professional relationship had first bloomed into something magical, Elena realized that her greatest fear had always been living a small, safe life. Now, with Damien's arms around her and magic coursing through her veins, she was embarking on an adventure that would be anything but small or safe. And for the first time in her life, Elena Roswell was exactly where she wanted to be. 6 months later, Apex Tech announced the engagement of CEO Damien Blackwood to senior developer Elena Roswell. The business press called it a modern fairy tale, though they had no idea how literally accurate that description was. On their wedding day, held in a private ceremony attended by both human colleagues and supernatural friends, Elena wore a dress that seemed to shimmer with inner light as they exchanged vows. Witnesses noticed that the amber stone in Elaine's engagement ring pulsed in perfect synchronization with the golden flecks in Damien's eyes. "Do you, Elena, take Damien as your husband? Your mate? Your partner? In all worlds?" the officiant asked, reading from vows they had written together. "I do," Elena said, her voice clear and strong, carrying to every corner of the garden where they had chosen to marry. "And do you, Damien, promise to protect, cherish, and love Elena across all your forms and all your days?" "I do," Damien replied, his voice resonating with harmonics that made the flowers around them seem to lean closer. When they kissed to seal their bond, guests later swore they saw golden light surround the couple for just a moment. Elena felt the final click of the magical connection settling into place, and she knew with absolute certainty that her life of hiding in shadows was over forever. Later, at their reception, as Elena danced with her dragon husband under lights, that seemed to flicker in response to their joy, she reflected on the journey that had brought them together. She had started as a shy programmer who could barely speak above a whisper, terrified of taking any risks that might expose her to judgment or failure. Now she was Elena Blackwood, wife to a dragon, partner in both love and business, and slowly developing magical abilities that would allow her to stand beside Damien in whatever challenges their unique world might bring. "Any regrets?" Damien murmured in her ear as they swayed to music that seemed written just for them. Elena smiled, thinking of her old apartment where she had hidden from the world. Her solitary freelance work, her careful avoidance of anything that might require her to be brave. "Only one," she said, looking up into his golden eyes. Damien's expression grew concerned. "What's that?" "I regret waiting so long to take a chance on something extraordinary," Elena replied, standing on her toes to kiss the man who had shown her that the most beautiful things in life were also the most impossible, as fireworks lit the sky above their reception. Guests saw only a successful couple celebrating their wedding, but Elena and Damien knew the truth was far more magical. They had found their perfect match across species, across worlds, across every boundary that should have kept them apart, and as they held each other under the stars, both human and dragon aspects of Damien's nature, content and complete, Elena realized that sometimes the greatest adventures begin not with a roar, but with a whisper of possibility and the courage to say yes to the unknown. The shy girl who had trembled at the sound of the CEO's voice was gone forever, replaced by a woman, ready to face whatever wonders and challenges lay ahead, and she would face them all with her dragon by her side, their bond unbreakable, their love eternal, their future bright with endless possibilities in the quantum cascade of their hearts. Elena and Damien had found their perfect algorithm for happiness, one that would run flawlessly for all the years to come.